My home. I'm a professor here at George Washington University, and I want to welcome you. I'm sorry I didn't get here on time. I was typically caught in Washington traffic. I feel compelled to at least make a few statements, not a lecture. I was up at Microsoft with Tom Davenport and Bob Buckman. You may remember some of those names. And I had about 125 executives in front of me. And I asked them a simple question. If I come into your office tomorrow, now maybe I'll give you a couple days, and I ask you for an inventory of your strategic resources or assets, would you have a list? So what are you talking about, Mike? Well, let me put it in other English. If I came into your office and asked you for what you're responsible for, because you have to report to your shareholders and get return on assets or return on investment, do you have a list of those assets? And I got to tell you, not a one person, yes, one raised their hand and said, oh, yeah, I got the resumes. I'm not talking resumes, I'm talking assets, resources. And I think we sometimes overlook the fact that I use a term for Goodyear because I use it all the times in my class. Trying to justify knowledge management, even call it an initiative, is anathema to me, even sharing, because I don't like those words. In fact, I often say, would Goodyear need to justify rubber to make a tire? Now, someone talked about outputs. And the output of an organization is dependent on the inputs. And in a knowledge-based economy, about 75 to 80%, according to the numbers coming out of the European Union and other places, are based on knowledge assets, knowledge resources. So it's incredible for me to, and I was at the sea level for 7 years of my life. I also was a killer in the Marine Corps. We said it's tough to be humble when you're the finest. I've been in academia for 13 years now, wrestling with this thing called knowledge management. But I think what we have lacked is the ability to recognize that knowledge in forms of human capital, organizational capital, and relationship capital. They all comprise not just the knowledge worker. We don't recognize sometimes organizational capital or relationship capital. And until we come up with a name for these assets, you'll get the same blank stare. Now, it amazes me how organizations do get a return on their assets when they don't have a list of their assets. How can you do risk management when you don't even know the value of an asset, let alone change management? How can you manage? Because managing involves return on assets. So somewhere along the line, we're talking about roles and titles, but we don't even know what an asset is. So we can talk about the roles and the titles all we want, but until we as a community recognize that this is the raw material, as Drucker said. Remember Drucker said in 1954 it was fast becoming, he used an industrial term, the factors of production. Well, they're beyond that. 70% of our $14.7 trillion is produced by this raw material. And yet, I can go to any executive room today and never find a complete list of all of those assets. So I think this is the challenge that we have not only in this discussion here, but throughout KM. We just don't know. Now let me give you my last pitch. Sharing doesn't excite me. I did a consultation to the World Bank for 3 months. I looked at their whole knowledge management program. And when Wolfenson was there, yet sharing is, blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm sharing with you now. It's clueless what you do with it. And that's why I came up with the definition of leveraging relevant knowledge assets. If you can't get 1 and 1 out of 2, if 1 and 1 is 2 to you, you're not leveraging. I was at SAIC for 5 years as an executive. We were getting 25% return on our assets, which was all knowledge, frankly, and information and data. That to me is leveraging, not sharing. I think we push the sharing around. I don't want to sound theological here or preachy. I just want to give you my perspective. Thank you for being patient with me, for listening, and also for coming to our home. And I hope you find it interesting. Go out throughout the campus. It's a huge one. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Mike.